нас будет чтение книги Гарри Поттер. Гарри Поттер и тайная комната. Чтение на английском языке. Так что, если кому-то интересно, присоединяйтесь. Вместе будем слушать эту книгу. Я буду читать на английском языке. На английском она называется Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Так, давайте начнем с главы. Глава 5. Chapter 5. The Whomping Willow. Я тут себе иногда помечаю карандашиками разные слова и изучаю что-то новое для себя. Ну что, поехали. The end of the summer holidays came too quickly for Harry's liking. He was looking forward to getting back to Hogwarts, but his months at the Burrow had been the happiest of his life. It was difficult not to feel jealous of Ron when he thought of the Dursleys and the sort of welcome he could expect next time he turned up in Private Drive. On their last evening, Mrs. Weasley conjured up a sumptuous dinner which included all of Harry's favorite things, ending with the mouth-watering treacle pudding. Fred and George rounded off the evening with a display of filibuster fireworks. They filled the kitchen with red and blue stars that bounced from the ceiling and wall for at least half an hour. Then it was time for last mug of hot chocolate and bed. It took a long while to get started the next morning. They were up at cock-crow, but somehow they still seemed to have a great deal to do. Mrs. Weasley dashed about in a bad mood, looking for spare socks and quills. People kept colliding on the stairs, half dressed with bits of toast in their hands, and Mr. Weasley nearly broke his neck tripping over a stray chicken as he crossed the yard carrying Ginny's trunk to the car. Harry couldn't see how 8 people, 6 large trunks, 2 owls, and a rat were going to fit into one small word, Anglia. He had reckoned, of course, without the special features which Mr. Weasley had added. Not a word to Molly, he whispered to Harry as he opened the boot and showed him how it had been magically expanded so that the trunks fitted easily. When at last they were all in the car, Mrs. Weasley glanced into the back seat where Harry, Ron, Fred, George, and Percy were all sitting comfortably side by side, and said, "Muggles do know more than we give them credit for, don't Mr. Weasley glanced at his watch and then at his wife. Molly dear, no, Arthur, no one would see. This little button here is an invisibility booster I installed. They would get us up in the air. Then we fly above the clouds. We would be there in 10 minutes and no one would be any the wiser. I said no, Arthur, not in broad daylight. They reached King's Cross at the 11:15. Mr. Weasley dashed across the road to get trolleys for their trunks, and they all hurried into the station. Harry had got the Hogwarts Express the previous year. The tricky bit was getting onto platform 9 and the 3/4, which wasn't visible to Muggle eye. What had to do was walk through the solid barrier dividing platforms 9 and 10. It didn't hurt, but it had to be done carefully so that no one of the Muggles noticed you vanishing. Percy first, said Mrs. Weasley, looking nervously at the clock overhead, which showed they had only 5 minutes to disappear casually through the barrier. Percy strode briskly forward and vanished. Mr. Weasley went next. Fred and George followed. I'll take Ginny and you two come right after us, Mrs. Weasley told Harry and Ron, grabbing Ginny's hand and setting off in the blink of an eye. They were gone. Let's go together. We only got a minute, Ron said to Harry. Harry made seriously. What are we going to do? I don't know how long it will take Mom and Dad to get back to us. They looked around. People were still watching them, mainly because of Hedwig's continuing screeches. I think we had better go and wait by the car, said Harry. We are attracting too much attention. Harry, said Ron, his eyes gleaming. The car? What about it? We can fly the car to Hogwarts. But I thought we are stuck, right? And we have got to get to school, haven't we? And even underage wizards are allowed to use magic if it's real emergency. Section 19 or something of the restriction of the thingy. Harry's feeling of panic turned suddenly to excitement. Can you fly it? No problem, said Ron, wheeling his trolley around the way to face the exit. Come on, let's go. If we hurry, we will be able to follow the Hogwarts Express. And they marched off through the crowd of curious muggles, out of the station and back into the side road where the old Fort Anglia was parked. Ron unlocked the cavernous boat with a series of taps from his wand. They haven't their trunks. They heaved the trunks back in, put Hedwig on the back seat and got into the front. Check no one's watching, said Ron, starting the ignition with another tap of his wand. Harry stuck his head out of the window. Traffic was rumbling loud along the main road ahead, but their street was empty. Okay, he said. Ron pressed a tiny silver button on the dashboard. The car around them vanished, and so did they. Harry could feel the seat vibrating beneath him, hear the engine feel his hands on his knees and his glasses on his nose, but for all he could see, he had become a pair of eyeballs floating a few feet above the ground in a dingy street full of parked cars. Let's go, said Ron's voice from his right. The ground and the dirty buildings on either side fell away, dropping out of sight as the car rose in seconds. The whole of London lay smoky and glittering below them. Then there was a popping noise and the car, Harry and Ron repeated. Oh, said Ron, jabbing at the invisible poster. It's faulty. Both of them pummeled it. The car vanished, then it flickered back again. Well done, Ron yelled, and he slammed his foot on the accelerator. They shot straight into the low, woolly clouds, and everything turned dull and foggy. На сегодня это все. This is all for today. Thanks everybody for watching this video. Спасибо всем, кто посмотрел это видео. Я надеюсь, вам понравился такой формат чтения. И буду за просмотр.